I am the contrarian, and this is my world.
Hi, my name is Anubhav Nair. I head the Viber business in India. India is currently the biggest market for Viber. We are a consumer-first company, and that is why we believe all our users should have equal access to data. That is why I stand for net neutrality.
Net neutrality, a phrase used by many, understood by very few. A phrase that affects every one of us, but none of us really understand how the actual usage of it, the pro and con, could actually destroy or make the future of the internet. But today we're going to wrest this down. For the first time ever, because of an Indian company, Airtel, we finally got this on home ground. Net neutrality is a big deal, and that's what we're going to get into. But let's try and we defined it, let's get our guest definition. So, for you, net neutrality is?
Net neutrality means all internet data is equal for all internet service providers, and also for the end user, they ought to have equal access to anything and everything that is legally allowed in a country on the internet.
Okay. Now, just this very definition kind of falls away when you try and understand that worldwide, the tariff charges for the kind of data connection that most people would have is anyway different. So whether you have home broadband, you pay for the kind of broadband speeds you require, or you come down to mobile networks and look at 2G versus 3G versus our upcoming 4G and whatever future we'll have, and then data packets. You actually subscribe to a particular amount of mobile data that you can actually download. How is it even possible to start the debate of net neutrality without even acknowledging the fact that it isn't neutral to start with?
It is completely to the user's choice whether he or she wants to go for a faster internet connection, slow internet connection, be it a 2G or a 3G broadband, or on their mobile. That is again left to the user, what user's prerogative, what he or she wants. But I think when we're talking purely in terms of the content that is available on the net, it still should rest with the user.
So you're basically saying if I can afford a 3G connection, then you're not going to filter me further by what I consume as data and content on that same 3G connection.
That's right. That's right.
Okay, now let's get down to the other part. And that is the part that I'm fascinated by. A lot of things to do with the internet. And because the internet by itself spawns an extreme amount of reaction, it's also the platform for social media to go berserk as well as support. A lot of romanticism has come into everything to do with the internet, right? So isn't this net neutrality also one of those romantic notions that has become a little redundant? Why can't a company that wants to set up the most amazing infrastructure ever to deliver the most incredible bandwidth heavy content be allowed to charge more for it?
And I think it's very, very, whether it's romanticized or whether it's relevant, it's right up there. And I think the main reason is because internet, the beauty of internet is that it provides a complete freedom in terms of expression, in terms of your choice, as compared to perhaps other mediums and other systems that exist in the world actually. If a company wants to build an infrastructure, I think it's purely that should that infrastructure development actually be fed off by restricting the end user on some other on what should be provided as access to them. I think the starting point itself is data, mobile data. Now, data specifically from an Indian perspective is growing exponentially, and I think that today continues to be the biggest revenue generator purely in terms of growth. Now, if we were to actually nip the buds right at the beginning of this data service growth, then we are sort of not looking long term like you mentioned, because as of now we are still in that space when it comes to India where data is still growing rapidly.
If you want to buy better quality steel, you're going to be paying a little bit more. If you're going to buy a different kind of a product of the kind of thing that you want to put in your house, you'll pay a different price for it. Content other than on the internet has always been differently priced. I've paid different prices for CDs when the CD was a big deal versus for a Blu-ray. So when music is a little different than video, why can't the same thing be there on the internet also. If on 3G I don't need video ever, I mean, it's not one of the things that I believe I'll be using for the next 6 months. Why not pay something which is much lesser, maybe 60% lower? And 3G with video, I pay 100%. 4G with LTE, I pay 200% with video. Why can't that be the business model? And what's so, why does everybody get so scared of the fact that we're talking just business and economics? It's not a big deal.
So you want to purchase better quality steel, yes, you go and pay that extra money. You need faster internet like we discussed earlier, you do pay that extra money. So I think the point over here is not paying a premium for service which is delivered faster to you. It eventually is the user who's finally paying that connection, whether it's a 2G or a 3G.
Correct.
So if he or she is happy with whatever they feel is the service that is being provided to them, putting in the content filter doesn't really add anything in terms of the overall experience. By putting in unnecessary gateways in between, it just spoils the experience. As Viber, we provide calls which will always work better on 3G. They consume a little higher data than pure messages. It's the end user who needs to decide whether they want to use it for calling or for messaging.
You're trying to protect the cause of the user because your business model does need it to be net neutral. But there is another part of it that becomes very, very critical. There seems to be this overall thought in the world, whether it's to do with a network abroad or any network in Asia or even in India, that the network service provider is the bad guy. Airtel or somebody else that came up with this idea and got completely and absolutely blasted that they had to retract within a few days. They are painted as the bad guys because they want to make a little bit more money, to get a little bit more infrastructure, grow the network, give a better service, but every single thing they do, they get immediately pulled back. Isn't it a bit of a problem that these networks have lost a lot of business that they had earlier because of the Vibers and the WhatsApp of the world? The SMS business, one of the most lucrative, profitable businesses in the world, is the most dead business. It's 8 feet under and it'll never recover, right?
Now, again, it's the user's choice whether they want to make a regular call or they want to make a Viber call. So I think the user's choice is clearly taken care of. Now, if you look at this, like I mentioned earlier, data is the biggest growth engine for any telco, I mean, globally and specifically in India. And I think even if you look at it as a percentage revenue that the telcos, whether it's in India or anywhere, are earning specifically through data, it clearly works.
Okay, all right. So right at the end, I'm going to start off with a small segment that we do, which is a quick fire. So sure. A quick short jab of a question and a quick short jab of an answer. Do you see nothing negative about net neutrality at all? Absolutely no negatives at all?
We stand with net neutrality, and I think that's...
But in a world where to do a larger good, there may be smaller bads, you see no bads at all. There's not a single reason or a thought that net neutrality, that part is a little dicey.
No, we stand with net neutrality.
Totally 100%. Yes. And that's you personally also.
Yes.
100,000 people write an online petition to you saying we're okay to use Viber and pay extra per second or per MB or per kilobyte of data used only for Viber, but give us the world's best service. Would you go for it then?
In that case, we would.
You would,
yes.
But then you're defeating net neutrality for 100,000
Not
people.
necessarily, because we are, like I said, it's a consumer choice.
What's wrong if certain parts of the future are funded by the users right now? All of us who are first movers, people who buy the latest flagship smartphone always pay a 25-30% premium than the guy who'll buy the same flagship smartphone 6 months later. What's wrong if a group of people actually fund the future where video bandwidth and higher heavy usage bandwidth is paid for today for better infrastructure for tomorrow? Why is there such a hue and cry about it?
I think because we're, like I've mentioned earlier again and again, that we are still at a place where the data growth itself is, we're in the middle of that space where data itself is growing exponentially. So I would say that we are jumping the gun and getting into, I would say, almost the next level of filtering content or providing that premium for content.
What about you having a deal with a telco that filter us and come up with a package where we're going to subsidize the user. Let the user not be the person to do it. Why can't you do some filter content? Then the net remains neutral. Consumer pays the same. But you're the in-between, the middleman that makes Viber work better.
I think the again the basis over here is that you want to provide better service, and for providing better service, you need you need extra money coming from somewhere. Now, if there are, going back to the example that you mentioned, if there are some people out there who are willing to pay that extra bit to get
Let's
that.
say there is nobody right now, but the way the internet business models have worked for a lot of people, you hook enough people in and make your money back later. So how about you coming up with filter content that is actually filtered, so data for only Viber? 5 years down the line, you and me will sit here and say, by the way, there used to be this thing called net neutrality about 3 or 4 years back. You and me spoke about it. Well, a bit of a utopian concept. Of course, we are in a better world today. Which one do you think will be the statement that we'll be making 5 years from now?
I think we would still be debating that should net neutrality
Really?
be there
5
or
years
shouldn't
from
be.
now?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll tell you what we'll do. I'll actually take up this challenge. I firmly believe, even though I am play the contrarian here, I do believe in net neutrality, but I think it's an idea whose time has come and gone. I think into the future, you've got to pay for better content, better data, better filters. It is all going to be, the net has survived on pictures and text. This is a new world of video and fast-moving images and content. It needs a different thought process. Thank you very much for being on the show. Wonderful talking to you. Thank you. So what do you think about this? Will net neutrality, something that we all seem to think is one of the most important things to defend today, is it worth defending, or will we move to a different business model in the future? Thank you for watching The Contrarian, and I'll see you here next week.
I am the contrarian, and this is my world.